I'm really, really honored to be here at a really historic moment with my colleague at the Newmark School of Journalism, Alia Malek, author of an extraordinary book called The Home That Was Our Country, a memoir of Syria. I know this has just been an overwhelming and extraordinary period for Alia, and she's been in tremendous demand. So thank you so much for doing this.
There is nobody I would speak to first other than you, Peter. Don't even think about it.
I really appreciate it. So folks who listen to this Zoom call will know that usually we do that with a whole bunch of people present, but I really wanted to do this one more quickly, and we don't have a regularly scheduled call on Friday at 1 p.m. So this is going to be a very valuable substitute. So Ali, I want to just start with like a really basic question that you've probably been asked a lot, which is most Americans, to the degree they paid any attention, thought that the Syrian civil war was in a deep freeze, that Bashar Assad had managed to regain control of the country. And then Americans, they kind of turned around and all of a sudden, basically this kind of lightning quick assault by these rebel forces that now have led to his overthrow. So can you just give a sense of how did this happen?
Yes, I mean, if you're only dipping in and out of the story on Syria, it feels lightning quick, but it has felt like an eternity for
Mm,
Syrians.
mm,
Um, and not just since 2011. And we should talk, I was just on an interview where they kept referring to like the Assad family dynasty. Okay, yes,
mm.
but it's really a regime that had many parts and many people were involved in it. So it's the same thing like as with the rhetoric around Israel, that it's like just somehow Netanyahu's crazy and everybody
Right,
else, right? I
right.
mean, these are huge systems.
Yeah.
And it has been 54 years under that regime. So it doesn't feel, and there have been obviously different moments in that history. But yes, if we were to start looking at things from 2011, from the season of the Arab Spring, and then sort of this idea that was all resolved, let's say in 2014, 2015, or came to this deep freeze, then yeah, it seems really quick. But I mean, I just want to keep that perspective
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
This has not been quick for the people who have been multiply displaced. I mean, people have been displaced multiple times, both internally and then sometimes even externally. We have seen Syrians die in all kinds of ways, right? From regular artillery to chemical attacks to Russian bombardment to drowning at sea. So, to freezing to death. I mean, so for Syrians, it has not been lightning quick. Of course, if you take it as this moment in time that happened in sort of the course of 10 days, then you are also prone to like thinking about conspiracy theories. And I have no doubt that there have been external malignant actors who sort of were seizing upon the moment. But there are some things that are sort of like undeniably true. And that is that Iran was significantly weakened, or Hezbollah for sure was, and Russia seemed less interested.
Mhm, mhm.
Right. And that was like when they first started their assault. I think for those of us who were holding our breath, it was like, God, there's going to be a Russian bombing campaign, because those sorties have not stopped. Even if, sure, if all these Americans or other people weren't paying attention, they haven't stopped. But the fact that there wasn't like this sort of aggressive bombing campaign started to give us some indication that maybe they were, their man in Damascus was not going to remain their man in Damascus. So it can seem quick in that sense. And it was. Obviously, the Syrian military was demoralized, didn't know what they were fighting for, underpaid, undernourished, even potentially. I think a lot of people came together. I think they saw an opportunity. I think the Syrians saw an opportunity. So I definitely don't want to deny their agency. And they've been out there training for nighttime attacks. They have been working, living for this moment. And at the same time, I think Turkey took advantage of the moment. Turkey has 4 million Syrian refugees that it doesn't want to keep all of them, if not most of them. It had been trying for months to normalize with Assad, to get the international community to normalize with Assad. The Arab League had sort of taken Assad back in. That looked like the way that we were moving. Assad was very stubborn, unwilling to make any compromises with the way Turkey was offering normalization. Assad was rejecting some of the conditions. I think the Russians were tired of him rejecting those conditions. And so there was this opportunity with Iran out of the picture. Then why not sort of maybe take this opportunity to change, to find a solution for the Syrian refugee crisis, which is Syria itself. Sorry, that I'm trying to turn that off. And fully sort of ostracize Iran from the region and cut off any kind of supply route that it had to Lebanon through Syria. So fast, yes, but also not fast.
Right. I mean, I get that Russia's fighting a war in Ukraine, but they've been fighting this war for quite a long time now. And I get that Ukraine, that Iran Hezbollah was weakened, and Iran seems to not, to be kind of hunkering down and not and kind of not be in such a kind of expansionist mode. But still, Iran and Russia seemed like they invested so much in Assad and keeping him in power. How do you explain that all of a sudden it reminds me of like Gorbachev in 1980, in 19, how did all of a sudden they just say, okay, fine, like do whatever you want?
Well, I mean, I think the Iranians' capacity to support Assad had been greatly reduced. And
Hmm.
if you see, like Netanyahu is like recording videos about how much he's taking credit for this, and people in like who comment on anything I post tell me that it was to thank Netanyahu.
Right, right,
So, I
right,
mean, Iran's capable, Hezbollah specifically,
right. Because
capability.
Hezbollah had done a lot of ground fighting
Yeah.
in Syria.
Oh, yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of ground fighting. I mean, so I think you probably saw videos when Hassan Nasrallah was killed of Syrians rejoicing. I mean, it is a
right, right.
complicated, it's and anyway, Russia, that's much more interesting because Lavrov was interviewed at the Doha Forum. I think yesterday, I don't know, like every day is like a month, it feels like right now. But he definitely made it seem like, these were the Americans and the Israelis and the
Mhm.
terrorists. But I mean, I don't want to speculate on this. This is nothing I have an expert on. You can ask Masha. But it seems to me that like the Russians signed off on in some way or another.
Interesting, interesting. So you were saying that the Russians may have tired of Assad and maybe had been
And
talking.
his obstinance.
Right,
And his
right,
obstinance,
right. And
frankly.
and so this group that has now managed to take Damascus, how do you think about who these folks are, what they believe, and how they might try to govern?